Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Pinball FX3. So, first things first, let's just jump in. I've never even launched FX3 because I only really looked at Pinball FX2 a little bit after looking at Pinball Arcade. But now there is weirdness, certainly in the idea that Pinball FX3 is getting replaced with a reboot in the Unreal Engine instead of using their own internal engine for all of the tables. Plus, all the licenses for Pinball Arcade kind of went over to Pinball FX2 and Pinball FX3, and that's what we're really looking for, is what are the offerings as far as these new generation of pinball tables that are for little kids and people who are used to playing video games where the scenes change and you need 3D models and characters moving around. Even here you can see there's a avatar talking to you, which is not really anything you would get in a real pinball table. You might get a call out where some voice plays telling you what to do. Generally, even the oldest pinball tables didn't really have to explain to people how to use a plunger to launch a ball or use the flippers. This is the first table.
Launch the ball 3 times to get the hang of it.
They're doing a very standard launch it 3 times thing.
Awesome. 2 more to go. Only 1 more.
Although, in all fairness, compared to Pinball Arcade, there really should be
Use the flippers to keep the ball in play.
there really should be a tutorial like this for Pinball Arcade. But at the end of the day, all of this really I think is going to boil down to, and I think that's a little too loud, so I'm going to try and turn down the audio a little bit more. Yeah, I think why is my microphone so quiet now? What did I just turn down? Sorry. Oh, I just turned down everything. Yeah, that was weird. Okay, let me try to adjust this again. Sorry for that. There we go. So really, if right now you're in a terrible position, you're better off waiting for Pinball FX Reboot, which is just called Pinball FX at the moment, to come out. Here, they just want us to learn to use the flipper. And they just want you to hit it 3 times. Apply your new skills and defeat these ghosts by hitting them with the ball. And honestly, the ball is probably moving fairly slow. And see, this is a great example of what is different about one of these new generations of virtual pinball tables, and that you've just got this tree in the corner moving and animating. You've got these hologram ghosts. You've got scores just appearing out of nowhere. Still many pinball skills left to master. Check out further tutorials in the Quick Play Hub. Okay. Celebrate the release of Pinball FX3 Williams Pinball Volume 1 with us. You get Fishtails Profile Customization Reward. Okay, I bet I get a bunch of these. So, yeah, the real solution would definitely be to either get away from the paid emulation and just straight up find visual pinball ROMs, for lack of a better term, because all the pinball companies themselves have been out of business, with the exception of Stern, which was slightly out of business and is back. So visual pinball really is the place to go. Now, I will say there is something interesting. If you want to play this on a cabinet, build your own virtual cabinet, you have to get an activation code. But unlike in Pinball Arcade, where it was like $600 and they didn't even offer it to you, they here really just ask you for a picture of your arcade cabinet, just to make sure you're not activating multiple machines, because it's for personal use only, and they don't want people building virtual pinball machines and putting them in their arcades. Although in all fairness, even that should be just ignored and allowed, because the truth is, we need, if pinball is really going to survive, we need pinball in either physical or digital form to actually be playable. And there's a ton of arcades out there, of the few arcades that are even left, that don't have a single pinball cabinet. You can go to plenty of bowling alleys where, sure, there's 4 or 5 arcade games, but no pinball. And Stern alone is not going to be able to just stay in business making pinball arcades for collectors. So yeah, I'm not going to spotlight Visual Pinball because it's not on Steam, but it's an open source software where you can, that has an editor to make your own pinball tables virtually and then physically if you want to try and actually build it. And it has a player in which you can find online somewhere, I'm sure, people that have reproduced a lot of the original tables. These groups will open and collapse. Alright. So, there's a lot here, and this interface is different than Pinball FX2. It's probably slightly better. You should go back to the main menu. There is also clearly a profile. So, they want to heavily motivate you to own all the tables. I own 57, which is probably a lot of free tables from Pinball FX2. I'm not sure I really built any, but my Wizard Scorer and Super Score and all of that has apparently been completely abandoned. I imagine they needed to do that, and that was the main reason to get away from it. Unlike Pinball Arcade, you have some mastery levels of some sort that seem to indicate you can get like 190 points. There's only 102 achievements in total in this game, and it seems like a lot of these achievements are straight up things that you can get on any table. And then you start to get to some of these other table specific achievements. And it really seems like maybe there's just one table specific achievement in total. And then apparently if you level up, you'll get some customizations, which, yeah, I get it. It's the whole Facebook idea, trying to make your game a little bit the game and more of a community.
Pinball tables have been upgraded with a ton of exciting new features.
Apparently also multiplayer, which
each table now has 3 brand new challenge modes, upgrades, and wizard powers.
interesting. I wonder what upgrades and wizard powers really could be.
Level up and master each table. Put your pinball wizardry skills to
And this avatar lady
in the matchup menu.
really didn't exist in Pinball FX2, and I don't know if she makes kind of a great depiction of a pinball avatar player. She kind of looks like she's from Tron or from one of the Marvel universe.
Puts the power of tournament play in your hands.
And there were no tournaments really running in Pinball Arcade because Pinball Arcade and Farsight Studios pretty much gave up when they lost all the licenses.
Using the new quick play hub.
So the eye there is just straight up an indication.
Audio
Right.
options.
So
Video.
we by default are at 1080p. Let's turn this up. I didn't adjust any of these settings. Let's turn that up to the highest. if my
Interface.
let's see, licensed music. Hmm. So interesting, you can turn off the licensed music. That's very helpful. And apparently it has a whole possibility as far as user interface and streaming. Was enter initials classic disabled. Interesting. Williams pinball attract mode disabled. Like Williams pinball action cameras. Yeah, there was a couple of tables that had cameras in them. I also feel like I could probably
Legal resource controls.
swap controllers and better in this. This is just way better an interface than Pinball Arcade 2. Pinball FX2 and Pinball Arcade. Alright.
My collection.
So this seems to me like this first group that seems like it would be a co-op game might just be a random grouping of tables, where here you have these Zen Studio tables, which all of these are kind of inspired by other tables, but never really made, and they always felt a little weird. And I guess if we look at this and I hit A, then this would be a new table to buy, and you can play a trial game. So it would make a lot of sense for us to not spotlight things I probably already spotlighted, and instead spotlight things that are new. So let's play a trial of Son of Zeus. There's a decent chance that they have improved their designs quite a bit. I doubt it though, looking at this table. There's still a ton of animation going on here, and what usually I have noticed in Pinball FX tables and Zen Studio tables, it really would probably be better to refer to them in that way, is that they are shorter tables with not so much feeling of the old tables. And that's the problem inherently for me, is that as an old fogey who play pinball in the real world a lot, I am not looking for fakery. Let's see. Now I wanted to ask, look, as far as video, is there a way to turn off the animations? Because some tables I know you can. View mode X. Alright, good. So we know that. So here you see very cartoony hitting it with lightning. Then you have this short stubby table that maybe this makes more sense on a monitor or on a cell phone, but it is just not the right ratio. And all these tables tend to be very annoying. See, and I have like only a minute, so I better hurry the game up. So X mode means turning off different angles. And having pop-up targets make a sound effect as they are bouncing around is weird. Music sounds good. The visuals do look new and interesting. The dot matrix display is just in the top left. They're not at all trying to make it seem like Interesting, the back and the start button do the same thing. They're not even trying to pretend like this is a real pinball table though. Instead they're showing you a background image.
Zeus won't hold your hand forever.
You are skilled indeed, stranger.
For like 4 seconds. And I think the physics on these tables might feel a little bit better.
My collection.
And this is just gonna drop me out to the main menu each time. The loading is faster than Pinball Arcade. And if this is what the right and left bump also can be used immediately by default settings. If this is the new generation of kids and they want something crazy like a table like this, maybe that's what pinball kind of has to be for, or at least some pinball tables kind of have to be that way. But this is, while a more standard fan layout, it's still a weirdly short table, and it's a table with the weird background that I'd like to be able to turn off. Of course, if you were playing in cabinet mode, that would automatically be turned off. There's a ridiculous amount of animation happening on the side and the back here. And this is your typical experience, is that the camera will totally change and you'll totally see some kind of animation in the middle of the game, making it so video gamey. This takes what was barely touched upon as an idea as far as video modes in real pinball tables, and it totally just completely changes it. So we've played Fishtails already, and then there's apparently a whole group here of new tables that seem to be for sale, and a whole group of new tables that seem to be for sale, and a whole group here that seem to maybe have a bundle of some sort. Interesting. So it seems like you probably end up buying 3 tables. Alright. And see, now you have an original mode versus a family mode. So we should know Funhouse in the original mode. So let's hop into that and experience that. This is really what I want as an old fuddy-duddy. It's the exact same intro from Pinball Arcade. So, yeah. However, that's not that Funhouse table. There we go. So I had to hit the B button to get the real table. And then the B button can bring it back with the side art. See, and this is kind of the mods. The side art mods here would be understandable, and it's something you could do in the real world. But all the other animation and extra lighting and like LED type jewels. This is a really quiet table too. Yeah, what I'd really like to do is, you've got this whole table guide, options. No specific audio for the tables, unfortunately. Yeah, there's just some hideousness there. And then you could turn off the pop-up scores too and get back to regular pinball playing. So if you absolutely had to play Funhouse as it is now, this would be the table to play it on. And take notice in the back, they add this like steps crossover ladder that actually hides real content that really existed there. Those are pretty terrible trials, I'll also say. Interesting. Yeah, the idea of moving light bulbs around and adding a piece of plastic could be something crazy that you would add to a table, but the idea of a ball having lightning effects and all of that is just crazy. And this is just incredibly quiet table. Does this feel wrong though? Let's see. Options. Let's go with. Didn't mean to change that. Pop-up message display on. Pop-up message display off. Pop-up score 1. Major pop-up score. Probably make the dot matrix larger. And apparently you could change the colors, but not do the aftermarket dot matrix modification. It's weird that it has a specific Williams set of tables, and that might be the thing that's here, is they may really only have the Williams set of tables. Trying to get the interface right. Vertical sync probably shouldn't be on. There we go, pop-up score. So there are some features definitely in this setup that they've done that are not right, and clearly there are features they added and wanted people to know existed, but they needed to pop up a tutorial and say, hey, do you like this or do you not like this, after a few games, because a lot of older players like me are going to be frustrated with scores popping up.
My collection.
Okay. So if we jump into a real table,
You will find the most well-known pinball game modes here.
Such as single player and hot seat multiplayer. Williams pinball tables now feature visual effects. Classical single player will be loaded with the visual extras off, and single player will be loaded with the visuals extras on. Visual extras can be turned off during play. For better gameplay experience, you can select new in-game camera angle with visible DMD on the cabinet. On Williams pinball tables, you can alter your view to check the cabinet back box by using the right stick or clicking the right stick. Okay. So
Your primary goal in challenge play is to unlock all stars by earning the highest score. Challenges.
So there's a 1-ball challenge, a 5-minute challenge, and a survival challenge. Interesting.
Each table features several rewards you can unlock by progressing your mastery level.
Okay.
Mastery rewards.
And let's see. Apparently, you just unlock these rewards when your mastery in total goes up. And I'm not sure if your mastery in total is different per table. It seems like it is.
You can slot up to 2 upgrades and a wizard power at a time, which grant game-changing bonuses. Upgrades.
interesting idea, but at a certain level, that's basically cheating. Let's see. Activate slow motion effect when pressed up to a maximum of 2 seconds. See. Increase score multiplier by 2 times when pressed up to a maximum of 5 seconds. And rewind time when held pressed to a maximum of 1 second into the past to the play table. And see, that's what all emulation should have should have had. Pinball Arcade totally should have had the ability to rewind. Every other emulator can do that. As far as the libretto cores, I think almost all of them can do it. So that's an interesting idea how they've kind of gamified emulation features to make Pinball FX3 still feel like a game to people. Let's see, this one's not available. Skill shot score bonus. This is 10% bonus to multiple scores. So yeah, your scores you would get on Fishtails in this format, though, potentially totally different than what you would get otherwise.
You can also start a local hot seat game for up to 4 players.
Yep.
Single player and hot seat.
There seems to be no support for multiple controllers, though. Seems like you probably are going to just hand over the controller, which is fine in pinball. With the exception of like 2 pinball tables where you play pinball against someone else. No pinball table ever was more than a hot seat, take different turns game. And some pinball tables played very differently in take different turns, whether it was an older or newer table, as far as whether it remembered the state of the pinball field in between each turn. If you prefer Williams pinball tables with authentic physics, select classic single player mode. Arcade setup simulates the default game settings, and tournament setup tries to conform to the tournament pinball rules as best as possible and equalize random game features and global score values. Interesting. 1 hour of unlimited ball save. Interesting. I wonder why it's specifically even limiting you to 1 hour of unlimited ball save at that point if you just want to practice. Maybe just to remind people to play the regular game. Achievements and leaderboards don't work there. Whereas seems like everything else, achievements and leaderboards, do work. What's funny is this is all just showing scores, and you can see that one of the names here as far as the overall high score is Tarek Uberdick, which is the same person that I'm fairly certain was hacking all of the Pinball Arcade leaderboards. I think he's probably hacking the same leaderboards here. But yeah, let's try this. Tournament setup or arcade setup on classic pinball. Let's try arcade setup. Now, I'm not a big fan of Fishtails as a table anyway, so this is going to be kind of a weird one to test out. Let's see. You have to hit the A button to launch. The right stick was not working because it's a physical push of the button. See, I wonder if maybe it's quiet because they just turned down all the licensed music really low. Really, it would be the Star Wars tables that got content ID'd last time I covered Pinball FX2. And that's not uncommon. Any variant, anything close to the Star Wars music will get content ID'd by somebody. on YouTube. Well, this doesn't feel wrong. This feels like regular real-world physics. It would probably take me several hours to be assured that I won't run into any kind of crazy physics where a ball, for instance, flies off the edge of a table into space. This table was actually pretty bad about that in Pinball Arcade. All these graphics look fairly similar. I mean, they look like what the real world table would have looked like. I imagine they all come from the same scans or 3D models that made Pinball Arcade. It's not quite reality. So here, if you want to look up, it is the right stick, but it's not so much that you can just zoom and look at the table. So I play one game and gave me 200 super score and 200 wizard score, which gave me 20 XP. Then you play again. Honestly, I would like to not turn on that feature. Let's see what tournament setup looks like then. I'd like to be able to lock the ball into the multi-ball lock. That way I can see if it flies off physically on the table. The angles are still weird. And I would love the side art, the runner art on the table like this, but turn off the animations. Like, I don't need a Fisher guy distracting me and moving me. And arguably, maybe that's what a lot of other pinball fans would say too, is that they don't like the side art and they do want just it to be black. Oh, this table does have a gauge on it also. To make sure it's at the right angle. Yeah, I think there probably is a slight split there between fans of the classic original form that a table comes in, even if, and a lot of times the original forms of pinball tables are not that pretty and not that finished. There's definitely a lot of tables that seem like they had to get newer revisions of their code and just never really were finished in the first place. Even now, a lot of the Stern tables feel like they don't really ever get finished or programmed particularly well. Right. Well, it didn't fly off the edge of the table when I locked the ball, but it did play an annoying animation. Yeah, I'm sure Pinball FX3, Zen Studios, just kind of hate the idea that there are consumers out there like me who would just say turn off all this garbage that you added, because that is not interesting and not what I want to play. So now that I just played the tournament rules and I got 13 million, and so that gave me 870 super score with 1,714 wizard score, which gave me 75 XP. Okay. So then let's see what the new single player looks like with the new physics. It kind of looks like it's the exact same table, it's just got the graphics on it. I can tell you something. You can just look in the lower right hand corner and see that air bubble on that dial. This table has been shifted significantly so that it is not as steep a shot. And I can feel it in the ball play. And honestly, I would have not been certain. I would have been able to feel that in the ball play. But these little camera angles are cool and all. But yeah, they have
Game pause.
shifted a lot of things.
Video interface controls.
Wizard power is Y. Auto launch ball is A. Manual ball is right stick. Video mode is X.
Game paused.
Interesting. We're making progress. There's no pro mode, it seems like, on these tables. Though. It doesn't seem like you're able to change the table or settings or anything like that. But they seem to have decided to make some changes. Make the ball more floaty. And in all fairness, I've said the exact same thing, is that if I owned some pinball tables, I would immediately go and change the tilt. And sure, pro pinball players probably would want the table to be as steep as possible so the ball doesn't feel floaty and moves as fast as possible. But most players probably do want a little bit of floatiness, because that's something that slows the game down and makes it more likely to not have the random drain outs. There's also limited ways you can nudge a table. I will say it doesn't really feel like there's too many ways otherwise that you could modify a table like this without just totally changing how it plays and changing the code, which, if there is some slight change in the scoring or the coding, that would take me some... I'd have to be fairly familiar with a table to recognize that. There is this streaking that I just got an achievement for something.
Game
Let's see if we
pause.
can
Audio options.
go to...
Video interface.
Advanced Pinball Guide, pop-up score. Wizard power display always. Wizard pinball action cameras, that must be what that is.
Video.
Ball trails off, that's what we want.
Game paused.
I kind of wish some of those settings would have been converted from Pinball FX2. Alright. What am I trying to hit? Water skiers or water skiers? I'm hitting both flippers. Apparently you're trying to hit boats, not water skiers. Yeah, and maybe I would adjust the graphics a little bit here to make it a little bit brighter, but this doesn't have that DirectX 11 feel of the DirectX 11 version of Pinball Arcade, where the lights are so bright that you can't even read them. Although this table does kind of feel like it has some kind of LED elements to them even at this point. Because those bulbs do feel fairly bright. I guess it's kind of hard to remember how dull the bulbs could have been for some players, and maybe not. Maybe that wasn't even intentional, but they really fail to compare to what LED can do now, to to a problem point actually, where a lot of players can't play tables that have bright LEDs pointing at their eyes because it causes eye strain.
You have leveled up an upgrade of this table.
Okay, mastering this table by completing all of its challenges, earning its achievements, and maxing up and upgrading the wizard powers. So we got a distance bonus level 1, plus 5 XP, plus 1 wizardry skill, ball save time unlocked, and multi-ball score unlocked. So let's go to the upgrades. And I guess you can activate or deactivate these as much as you want. Nope, it seems like you can only have 2 activated. So 20% longer ball saves and 10,000 scores for each yard the ball travels. Interesting. I think multi-ball would probably be way better on that though.
Congratulations!
I also leveled me up, so I have now a new frame and profile background. Now part of the problem here though is that none of this makes any sense, even for Steam to have profiles and backgrounds and frames. And they're just using the logo I have on my Steam account. But yeah, even on Steam, I don't care about any of this, and nobody cares about any of that. We also leveled up to level 3.
Single player results.
So I got 86 million, which gave me 900 super score and 900 wizard score, which gave me 485 XP and 3 stars, whatever stars are.
Single player and hot seat.
Okay. Seems like you can't online. Alright, so let's see. Overall, there's like 698 billion is the highest score on this table. Interesting. This does include yourself as a friends, which puts me at 886 million, which puts me at 68,127th position, which is not bad. There's suppose you could scroll down this if you really wanted to, but I don't think there's a real reason for any of that. And seemingly you can press Y to get more information, or A for a player profile, which, let's see what a player profile looks like. No, just pops up the Steam web browser and goes to my Steam profile, which, and then the Steam overlay, which, what is that? Shift tab, control tab, how to exit, Steam overlay. There we go. Shift tab it was. Slightly different score for the classic score. So I am 174,000th for that classic score. And the highest score at that point for classic and tournament is 36,943,000,000. So notice how there's a 20 times plus difference between the highest score at this level versus the highest score at this level. And then hot seat and practice don't really play a role. Alright. And let's check out the challenges. So if I hit one ball challenge, and sorry for playing fishtails, but we'll reach the high score with one ball. So getting a bonus hold, not gonna cut it. Do I have to get the score before the end of the ball bonus? Or can I get the high score after the end of ball bonus? I assume that this is not a particularly high challenge to get 3 million. Yeah, yet I failed. Interesting, and it does just end the whole game there and show you the match. And see, that's kind of an example of where that is really example of where save states and having challenges based on save states makes a lot of sense. Because that's effectively what's happening here. Is if I get over 3 million, it is more than likely at that point going to hold whatever that high score is, and I'm going to start at that high score for the next tier. I did just realize that with the new graphics, they have changed the flipper colors. So there's just a completely different table here. This has been modded like crazy. They got away from the ugly yellow Williams, which are very standard but very ugly, I will admit. To a blue and white combo that matches the color palette better. I'd also say the blue and white flippers kind of help the problem with the fish art in the background too.
You have leveled up an upgrade of this table.
See, and I think that it would just be nicer in general if I could make slight choices myself and customize it. Bumper score is now do another level up.
One ball challenge results.
So the high score here was 10,247,000, where my previous best was 2,229,000, and that jumped me up 3 of the 15 challenge tiers. And it says next star is at 15 million. So the question to ask is, am I going to start at 10 million, or do I have to do a one ball challenge from 0? Because I could pretty easily do both. Like, it's not insane to get one really good ball where it just lasts forever. Like, all I really would need to do is manage to start a multi-ball on one ball. Extra balls only give scores. Interesting. See, I was just given 4 million. And seems like when I get from one level to the next star level, it didn't just raises the bar on you again. So it'll tell you to get like 10 million now, and then once you have 10 million, it'll tell you to get 15 million or whatever the next amount is. And this is pretty much not this game. It's a made-up rule set for this game. In the idea that extra balls are giving you some value, of which you wouldn't really know how much that is until you get it.
One ball challenge results.
It is kind of slow, though, some of this. If you just want to play, I think practice mode might be your best bet. I don't know why I'm really doing the one ball challenge once again, because clearly if I'm going to play this kind of stuff, I'm going to have to play a lot, and I'm going to have to pay a lot, because I'm going to end up buying all these tables for Pinball FX3, which I cannot do that. No, that is completely unjustifiable, because it seems to me like these, like I heard, and I'm fairly certain I remember this correctly, any table you own for Pinball FX3, not going to carry over potentially to Pinball FX the reboot. So you very possibly may not be able to buy some of the tables for Pinball FX3, at least on day one, and you very possibly may have to buy them all over again, which for some people, for me, might be the third time potentially that you buy the tables again. And the idea of just paying over and over and over again for pinball does not work for me, because I honestly just don't play enough pinball to justify that. 11 boats sunk. Now we have activated Rock the Boat. Which seems to not have been good enough. Because I couldn't get that shot. So, but I made it to 7. Rank 7 of 42 million. It didn't reset me though in like a save state to a certain score. Of course, if you're using these upgrades while doing the challenges, it's so easy then. That totally is just gonna happen. I don't know if I'm getting extra XP, but it does seem like you pretty quickly would end up getting all the XP on a specific table anyways after maybe an hour or two of playing a table, and then you are back to you're back to where you are as far as as far as just you're gonna play a table because you like it and that's it. They can add as many challenges and as many ways to create new game modes and intrigue you to keep on playing, but if you run into a mediocre table that you only want to spend a couple hours on, then you only want to spend a couple hours on. Now I assume the Zen Studios Doctor Who Master of Time table would never be playable on any Pinball FX software. That is a tiny loss, not barely worth mentioning, but I'm assuming all the Williams, Bailey, Stern tables potentially could be here, plus several tables that Pinball Arcade 3, Pinball Arcade just never got the license for, so you might have a better selection here. Like in the same way, I'd kind of just immediately not even care about and dismiss the Zen tables and only focus on the licensed tables. And I would barely even pay attention to the Zen tables that were made with licensed properties, such as the Marvel tables and the Disney tables, in favor of real-world licensed tables. But we do need to go check and see if those Star Wars tables have been given like new layouts or new modes. I imagine the answer to that is no. I definitely don't like the idea of a timer counting down in the top right corner. Um, let's see. That might be something worth turning off so I have less of a distraction. Hmm. 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 Just trying to launch as many balls. Fishtails is not a particularly great table in that you're trying to start some fairly difficult modes through some fairly difficult shots and trying to catch different fish. And that's just like the entire theme of the table, obviously. It is a different experience, certainly, to have 5 minutes guaranteed of play. So I can see why this boiled down to the practice mode is limited to an hour of unlimited saves. Because otherwise you are going to just straight up gaslight yourself into believing you're a great pinball player, starting and activating wizard modes. And frankly, if you can't start a wizard mode on a table after an hour of unlimited saves, you don't deserve to ever see that wizard mode. And I mean, if you are a 4-year-old playing pinball and you can't start a wizard mode in an hour of unlimited saves, you don't deserve to see it. And yeah, 5 minutes is really plenty of time to get a decent score. You won't get it always in 5 minutes. It's enough of the time to give you a challenge still. You can see how this score at 5 minutes is still actually fairly low. Now you don't get unlimited saves when you drain out the multi-ball, but do have a rock the boat mode here. I guess you want to shoot every opportunity. Because it is just a timer. See there, I just barely made it over 50 million. And I don't know if there is another tier above this that is reasonable, or if the next challenge is to score 100 million in 5 minutes. Which maybe you could pull off with some jackpots. And if you can get into the multi-ball mode on this table a lot faster than I was able to do it. And see, what's interesting about this is time has got to end, and then the ball has to drain to give us our final score, doesn't it? Don't we get that end of ball bonus? Or do we not get the end of ball bonus and it's just whatever you get? I feel like the avatar's hair should be silver. Wouldn't that make more sense? It's maybe a little salt and pepperish, but I think it should be bright silver for pinball. But whatever. Maybe Zen is trying to use that as a mascot until... So next time they would have wanted me to get 60 million, so you know for 14 more they're going to add at least 10 million, so 140 million, so they want you to get 200 million in actuality on that challenge. And then here you have a survival challenge. So I don't understand how a survival challenge is going to work when it has unlimited ball saves, which is playing the same table over and over again, just to understand this. Reach the target goal to survive. You have 1 minute. Ah, I see. So it's a knockout challenge, basically. Knockout score challenge. Maybe knockout's the wrong phrase, but basically, if you were playing 4 people here, the person with the lowest score would be knocked out. Oh. So it's not really the best table for me to choose to play, but it suppose it's fine. If I... Okay. Seemingly, I reset that to a minute when I hit a score. So, do you want to potentially get a high score as fast as possible, or do you want to relay it? Yeah, I guess that is the challenge here, is you could set yourself up for several millions in a multi-ball and then try to shoot some other stuff while you have the 47 seconds here to do it. And there I got 10 million, so that knocked me to like the 5th level. There's another 10 million. There's 10 million. Start that multi-ball. I'm at rank 7. There's a U-turn for 1 million. The audio does sound very weird here. Like you're listening to someone playing pinball in the other room. 5 million, one fish was stretched. Maybe I am supposed to just shoot everything on that. That may be the case. Third ball is locked. So if we can just get a decent multi-ball. Hmm. 44 seconds. I suppose you could mess yourself up by accidentally not getting to the next level. But since you have that infinite retry, the only thing you could end up doing is just losing momentum and goofing around and missing shots and having the ball bounce around, or weakly go up shots and angles, which that's happening a lot on this table because they've got it at that different angle. These are not the appropriate, it's not set to the appropriate angle that it normally would have been. It's set closer to the factory default angle. And I guess inherently that that is part of the problem with pinball in general, is that it was so greedy as far as the factory default settings, and amongst arcade owners and manufacturers of arcade tables, that they would set the tables to be particularly difficult and steal quarters from little kids. And so now that Zen Pinball has come in here and changed it up and said, actually, let's try and make this table easier, it just doesn't feel like real pinball. Pinball has always been a kick in the teeth frustration fest, for lack of a better term, for players until you just get good. Pinballs was Dark Souls before there was Dark Souls. Might be a phrase that's somewhat accurate to use. In a lot of ways, that comparison is, I think, very accurate. There I've gotten to the max level, so now I'm just wrecking it for a... Well, I might be actually at the second to highest max level. So then the question comes down to, can we make it to the max level, or are we gonna get wrecked? Do we get the ball drain award? I don't think we do on this either. So we have like 12 seconds potentially to get a massive amount of score. That doesn't seem like we're gonna get there. Yep. So I was like 10 million away from just maxing out that master. Master's table by completing all of its challenges, earning all the achievements, and maxing out the upgrades. So, where are we at now? Can we enable this slow motion effect, time rewind effect? So you do get only one of the wizard powers because there's only one wizard button, and you're still fairly limited to the maximum of 2 passive upgrades, but like 1 active upgrade and 2 passive upgrades is still a massively useful thing. And so just focusing on one table for about an hour has gotten me up to rank 7, and we have Monster Fish, which was rewarded for that. So these are different kind of like images, which are pictures. Interesting. Instead of like trading cards. And I have like 3 achievements also unlocked on Steam. I got all 15 out of 15. That gave me 1,065 points and 36 stars. So let's do an experiment here. Can we start a game and then just let it drain? Now rewind time 10 seconds, and that works, but I don't think anything refills your time rewind, so you just have that for that one instance. So one mistake is all you can undo. Let's see. Probably should get 1 star just as a time-saving mechanic, but then that would mean we'd have to sit here for another amount of time, so I'm just gonna risk it. Just hold the ball for another 17 seconds to let it end, and what we're trying to see is, when this game ends, do I get any more experience or mastery level? Can you do this over and over again? Does it have a value to that? Or is it just for your own entertainment. Also be kind of nice if you could change this background scene, but whatever.
Survival challenge results.
So I got 2 million, which did give me some XP. And apparently the gold star on the challenge does increase your star level. There must be some kind of maximum to that, I would think. And as far as challenges go, like I'm at 33,876 position with that challenge, and 125,175th of that challenge, and 32,693rd. A lot of people playing these games though. That is surprising.
My
That
collection.
it doesn't really feel like we've lost we lost the fandom as far as pinball tables. But yeah, I see a Williams collection, and this does seem like this is considerably fewer Williams tables. I see a Jurassic Park collection, which some of these may be the Stern tables or might be brand new tables. I see Universal Studios tables, which I imagine those aren't actually anything. I know all of these Marvel tables are not real world tables. I know all these Star Wars tables aren't real world tables. I know these Bethesda tables, which I never even bothered to buy, aren't real world tables. In a funny way, I guess this Pinball FX3 does offer something that you probably can't get with Visual Pinball, in the sense that I doubt too many people bothered to make the Force Awakens table and remake it in Visual Pinball. Maybe people did, maybe didn't. There's a Valve and a Walking Dead table, which I feel like I earned those for free by owning Portal and Walking Dead. What's surprising here is Circus Voltaire. Where is Circus Voltaire as far as a table? Is it really? Yeah. Yeah, it is labeled as a Williams table. Is this all they have, though? It seems like kind of a small number. I mean, it probably we kind of know how many there are. There's 99 tables here. There's no more available for sale. I hate that this is the new interface for tables in general, is that they have become these interfaces just full of advertisements no matter what, and whether it's an advertisement to give you news, the new season has started or whatever, matchups, which apparently matchup, I don't understand what that would even be, but it must be what
My collection.
these tables are, is that they are a way of trying to get people to own several different tables from several different groups. It says put your wizardry skills against other players, find competitive matches in the matchup menu, and choose your opponent. So you're playing against somebody. Interesting. And so they have only 4 tables with the matchups going at any one time. Okay. So let's start checking this out. This is going to be a fairly long spotlight, but with only 1 minute per table that hasn't been purchased, and with little reason to check out tables that have been purchased, we'll jump into, say, like Infinity Gauntlet and The Force Awakens, and just remind yourself that those are the same tables. We'll actually burn through this fairly quickly. I feel like I've played all of these tables before. It is possible that Castle Storm I haven't covered. Like, I can almost pretty well tell you exactly which table each of these is designed to represent or or rip off, because these are clearly just rip offs of other tables. Alright, let's go with Space Station. Play trial. And so this was a plunger table. You get the side art. They seem to kind of have decided that that's the way to do it, is to simply have side art and a animated character and some animated toys, where it's stationary toys of the space station in the back right there that's being replaced. It's just giving me, I think, extra balls so I can play a trial. I believe Space Station is one of the Pinball arcade games. If it is, it's not a particularly good game. So we have like one table here from Williams. And I would have to check as to what the actual cost of these tables are, but I bet they aren't 99 cents. It seems weird that you just have like this background that's the same for everywhere, and there's just one pinball table in a corner against a post. And you can see this is what the table looked like originally for Dr. Dude, which we have played before. And it seems ridiculous. Have all these extra animations. They also swapped the white flippers for blue and yellow themed, which, in all fairness, I guess the Williams tables probably would be better if they had a better, a larger variety of flippers, and that's something you could do to your personal table. And kind of inherently, this is the problem with all pinball, is that pinball feels like it may be dead in less than 15 years, just to pick a random number, just because the electronic components are going to be impossible to replace. The technology is just a little too old. It's not microchips and transistors, it's motors and relays and pieces of metal acting as switches. And once those plastic components start to turn back to oil, that's going to be a real problem. But even people that maintain their tables are going to run into this issue of that temptation to not maintain it the way it used to be, but instead to tinker and upgrade. And so there may be no standard way things are. Which, that's kind of the issue with like the Dead Sea Scrolls, as it were. Man, they just added a whole nother thing in that lower left hand section. And the circus guy is blinking now instead of just being a stationary toy. Interesting. Let's turn on. Take notice that the ball on this version of Circus Voltaire versus the Pinball Arcade, the ball in the captive menagerie is actually a different color. So clearly that ball was not consistent even amongst the different versions. Now, none of the wizardry things I unlocked for fishtails would apply to any other table. So at the very least, you would have to be somewhat decent at the table before you could even start to unlock some of the cheats. But that one good game turns it down potentially to a smaller game. a easier experience late after that one good game happens. I have to really question though the logic behind
Main menu. My collection.
adding animation. It does seem just kind of dumb and distracting. Like, it's already hard enough to get a good game of pinball for a lot of people, even decent players like me. So why do you want to mess with people and put a golfer character? Like, even sometimes the regular pinball table flickers so much it can be a distraction. And here we have no good golfers, but no teed off or any of the other brands. So no Gottlob, no Alvin G and Company, no Stern, and no Bailey tables at all. Which, in all fairness, maybe you could skip one of those, but skipping 3 of them just for a Williams collection is kind of a mistake. And this really does just also highlight that it does highlight a fact that Pinball FX1 and Pinball FX2 were never really designed to be emulators of real-world tables. They were designed to be something different, a pinball for a new generation and new kinds of tables that are barely pinball, fictionalized digital tables.
Main menu. My collection.
And clearly Williams got mad at some point, or just got a better offer at some point to move its license over to Pinball FX and Zen Studios, and that cut the wind out of the sails of anybody wanting to license any more games to Pinball Arcade, and Pinball Arcade really trying to improve anything. I will say Pinball FX3 is a better software and much more gamified, much more challenges, much more focused. It would make a lot more sense if I owned these tables, and frankly here's what I'm going to have to beg, is that somebody would have to give these tables to me. It would make a lot more sense for me to play them, probably not in this version, but in its regular version, to get all the challenges and all the achievements. The achievements on these tables seem to be more durable, more reasonable. They're not just crazy, go into the expert, most insane thing that table wizard mode that can be activated. Although maybe that is the final goal for every table, is to activate whatever the most rewarding wizard mode would be. I saw somebody replace the red spinner disc for the lamp on a real world table of this, and they replaced it with a clear plastic table and color LEDs that seem to just phase between different colors. I absolutely hated it. I guess I'm a bit of a purist, or a big purist really, but yeah. That is the kind of modifications that will just constantly happen. Doesn't immediately seem like there's much of a difference to this table. It's I imagine when you start the Monsters, Monster Bash and the Monster of Rock mini games, that you'll start to see some real changes here. Now what's interesting here about this one is that the LCD screen moves out of the top left depending on the video mode you're on. and the display itself is telling you what views you're on, so you have an actual number. I don't like those pop-up displays, but they seem to be permanently encoded into the new mode. There is a difference though, having a effect on the side of the rails to instead of just black walls of a pinball table. I've seen newer stone ones that have LEDs on the sides of the table that light up and are controlled, and that gets a little extreme and distracting, but I think it's fairly easy to ignore the art on the side, and it does make a table look better. I guess the question is, some minimalists or purists may want a table to look exactly the way it did originally, but some people would want to paint their walls too. Some people like white walls and some people like wild painted walls, and I guess you get both options, although if you want the wild painted walls you also get a bunch of other elements. One thing I think that this version with the upgraded graphics does is it highlights the creature in the Black Lagoon element better, which that can be appreciated certainly. And they've added a car pop-up to the pop-up bumper, so that one isn't a bad idea to make it easier to see what's happening in the top playfield. We just saw the creature from the Black Lagoon swim by as a animation instead of not being able to really see him itself for in very rare scenarios. This is another one of those tables that has been adjusted, and take note that they are adjusting the physics for the trial game, so they're kind of selling you a bill of goods because they're making it easier during the trial, and they've lowered the tilt on the table quite a bit. But I kind of appreciate that too. I wish I could have done that in Pinball Arcade. What's this one? Whitewater? And I'm not going for a full criticism of these tables. I'm just looking at what they look like here. They totally moved the Yeti around to be an animated Yeti instead of a mechanical Yeti. They've added all kinds of more nautical decorations, which actually that works very nicely, because I could see some people looking at Whitewater and not realizing that it was a whitewater rafting nautical themed table if you weren't paying enough attention. Even with the angle changed, you may notice I'm trying to hit that center lane shot and I am failing very miserably. And that smack there didn't feel as strong as it should be either. Having just played this table relatively recently, I can definitely say that their changes in the physics have affected how this table feels. And I probably would get used to that fairly quickly, but Red and Ted's Roadshow, sometimes just sold as Roadshow. And so you have this toy bulldozer, and interesting. It's just taking up the entire surface of the table while you're not paying attention. Red and Ted's is a little crazy for how many different modes it has in it. There's like a whole whiteboard in the back and all kinds of animation. But they very much overly animated the bulldozer in the lower right hand corner. It's giving you, like, I think, a visual indicator of what day of the week it is. Right. Yeah. Physics feel wonky on that one. It doesn't feel right at all.
So long, y'all. Main menu. My collection.
Let's see. Next, we have Hurricane. Let's hop into this. Hurricane is the, in my opinion, worst version of Cyclone. So, do I already own Cyclone, or do they not have Cyclone? Like, I'm sure Williams might argue that Hurricane is the better version, more modern version of Cyclone, but no, I would not agree with that. So, dancing clown and a bunch of spinning animation. Yeah, at the core of it, I just will not appreciate all of this animation. And I don't think any kid playing this would eventually get better looking at animations like that. And I think kids would have to learn to turn it off too and just play it this way. And at a certain point, that is the catch-22, is that I'm not sure anything is going to convince an average child to enjoy pinball in the same way that I don't think you can really convince an average child to enjoy playing Super Mario Bros. 1 or 2. You might get them at like Super Mario World, but I bet you can barely convince a child born today to play Super Mario 64. That's why it is, in my opinion, very important to trick them into playing the old games first before they see any of the new games. That way they can work in a linear fashion. Here's one of my favorites, Theater of Magic. And let's see, we can see there's a hat where there was a magic ring before. They moved that to a hat. They've changed the color of the chest, so it's dark now where it was more purplish in Pinball Arcade. We've got a standing character. They've increased the comedy drama masks in the background. They've added a magic wand to the top of it, a floating magic wand. And they've made the captive balls more colorful instead of just regular pinball tables. That would be an interesting aftermarket design, certainly, to put in custom things. Doesn't really feel like you are actually hitting the treasure chest. But see, those are supposed to be the lion balls, so I don't know if that color palette is the right one that you would want, instead of having them maybe look like cheetah stripes. The audio here is still really quiet. And having the ball glow didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, for the most part, that's still Theater of Magic and still a decent game. And then they're gonna jump us to Champion Pub. Before we get into Champion Pub, though, I do want to see if we have Hurricane here, do we just not have Cyclone? Yeah, we don't. The collection here is way smaller as far as Williams' license than what Pinball Arcade offered at one time. So you really are just kind of out of luck both ways, and it goes really back to what I had just said at the beginning of this long appearance. I like these backgrounds. Somebody put some real effort into taking the image of the back glass and turning that into a background menu. But yeah, you really are just out of luck if you want to actually try and pay somebody and support a company. In all fairness, Stern is almost the same Stern, but Stern also kind of rips off people too, so that they really don't deserve too much generosity. And any other company that owns the rights to pinballs is just basically a holding company. There isn't a single employee who ever worked to build a real pinball table or design a real pinball table. There's just this intellectual property that exists and copyright that exists, and maybe even some patents on some mechanisms that still exist for pinball that somebody is profiting off of, even though they did not put a single bit of work into the development of that. Which this inherently makes a great argument for something I think that should happen, is that when a company goes bankrupt, any intellectual property, this is a smaller wire than what it was on Pinball Arcade. I guess they made it a smaller wire so it looks like a jump rope. Like, I am of the opinion that when I didn't even show what it looked like normally, so let's hop back into that, play another trial. Like, when a company goes bankrupt and goes out of business, the intellectual property and patents should not be transferable. It should be more of a case of it becomes public domain at that point completely. This Champions Pub table may look really good, but in my experience it just doesn't really play very well. You get a lot of balls just hitting that punching bag in the center and bouncing back down. So this would be a case where if they could change the visuals and the physics too. Notice that it didn't zoom in that time because I didn't have the better visuals on, I suppose. But yeah, the real solution here is for you to really just go find some visual pinball ROMs of tables, of real world tables, because the only people that you may be screwing out of a few dollars is people that are just sitting on copyrights for things they never created, and that doesn't seem right to most people. The idea of profiting off someone else's work and profiting massively, everybody would like that to be a moral way of doing things, but there's really no moral way in which that actually happens. Whereas copyright is supposed to be the balance between the benefits of the individual creator and then society. Copyright has been perverted, as that general concept has been perverted, to allow individuals who weren't actually creative or artistic to profit at the frustration and lack of benefit for society. Disney and Mickey Mouse is kind of a great example of that if Mickey Mouse had gone into the public domain 20, 30 years after it was created, then there would have been nothing wrong with anybody making their own Disney cartoons, Mickey Mouse cartoons. But instead, one company has been able to hoard and license it out and make millions of dollars, and not really benefit society because they haven't even made any new Mickey Mouse cartoons in a very long time. This is a interesting reskin for this table, considering how Safecracker is this smaller table. Doesn't look like they really reskinned that part of the table. And yeah, Disneyland would still exist even if they didn't have the rights or the exclusive rights to Mickey Mouse. And Disney stores would still exist. But there would be so much more, and it would benefit so many more creative people. I mean, you just have to look at the massive amount of new cartoons that are created with new characters that fail because they are boring. And you can see in pinball, to bring it back to pinball, there is, yeah, you don't get to play that mini game because it's always going to be longer than a minute to get to the second part of Safecracker. Pinball itself severely succeeded by being able to make games based on the Creature from the Black Lagoon and Universal Monsters, even though they probably did pay licenses for that. Pinball would have probably succeeded a lot better if there were more Universal Monsters type games. And like No Good Gophers would be a better table if it had just been called Caddyshack. Red and Ted's Roadshow would have made more sense if it was a home improvement themed table. Champion Pub would have made a lot more sense if it was Rocky Balboa. Let's see, moving on. Here we have Black Rose. Interesting pick. I do enjoy Black Rose as a table. And there's a lot of animation that seems to have been added. No, actually not that much. Just a few 3D models. And inherently, there's a decent chance that these 3D models that were added are just pre-bought 3D models from an asset store. I wouldn't in any way call Zen pinball tables asset flips, but I wouldn't be surprised if the animations, the movements, some of the sound effects that may have been added. I don't know if they're actually adding any sound effects, actually. Probably aren't, really. Like, almost certainly some of that was pre-bought, and so they probably did the right thing and focused on just making sure the animation and the emulation works. See if we can actually hit it this time. Nope. There's not really a big difference between the graphics on and the graphics off here. Just I imagine there definitely are some pinball owners too that would love to put on some polish and modifications to their tables, but they're struggling just to maintain the tables and keep them from breaking. I wouldn't be surprised if that is exactly the issue. Have we seen a single table that wasn't on Pinball Arcade so far? No, we haven't. And see, that's kind of the crazy thing, because here would be like a great example of a table license that they should have given. It seems like Williams did not bother to renegotiate or offer any new tables at all. Otherwise, Revenge of Attack from Mars would have been on the table as far as a license. And Zen's not trying to really reskin these tables as completely different things. They are just polishing them up and putting a little 3D visuals over it to make it somewhat unique. Which arguably maybe these animations are in part added to have some personal copyright claim as far as the new versions of these tables. Missiles are launched. And so now we've got multi-ball going with 4 seconds to go. They didn't really even change the toys in the 3D animation there. Party Zone, another good table. If anything, what Pinball FX3 has done here is they've eliminated the scruff. And they have removed the head and instead turned it into a flashlight, spotlight, and him riding in front of where his head would be. So looking at center would have just been a head moving left and right, and now they've converted it into this animated character in the spotlight. Which again, not much else has changed. It's just side art. And this is the one where you can, let's see, play different songs. Which I should have actually selected. Footballs are flying across the screen. That's crazy. Actual distractions, that's going too far. I should have selected Pinball Wizard as the song to play. With being only given a minute to play, you really can't try too much, test them out too much, but these tables feel fine. They don't feel wonky or crazy. His getaway, not high speed, though. And here you see a police officer animation. I don't know if there's really much other different on the table. Some slight animation differences, and that's it. Yeah, they thought of 3 or 4 different things to add to a table to just make it slightly different, and then they stopped. Which is in all fairness the better move. It would have really sucked for them if they hadn't stopped and the tables were completely different and they spent 6 months making a completely different table that nobody really wanted to play or appreciated. That would be fairly devastating. I'm not sure how you would shift up on this table though, because you have an auto launcher A enabled, and then you have the plunger. So if I could get up to the red line, which I probably can't do in the amount of time that a free play would let me get there, I would have to at that point figure out what button to press. Alright, so Junkyard. It's adding some of the inventions. And that's kind of crazy because there's already like a ridiculous amount of toys in Junkyard. So the idea of adding more is kind of crazy. I feel like they may have cheated the physics some on this table so that that ball on the chain swings a lot easier than it normally would. But again, that all you have to do is have the table adjusted so that you can shoot up that center lane easier, and that would happen naturally. Yeah. So they've added an animation of each piece that is collected, each piece of junk. Which in all honesty, you could pull that off on a Junkyard and either get someone to 3D print or mold those kinds of toys. Yeah, I definitely had the thought of a pinball company potentially giving a quarterly or monthly like loot box. I don't know how you would do that though to pinball fans, even if the pinball fans had 5 or 6 tables. Like, you could have a loot box that could have a toy that could be put inside of Junkyard and maybe blind bag it and have them trade. Here we have Medieval Madness. But no, Black Knight 2000 or Black Knight Sword of Rage. None of the Stern tables. What's here? They switched they added catapults, they switched the dragon and the castle. Well, they didn't really change the castle, did they? I'd hope that the trolls would be different, but I'm not sure we're actually going to be able to see them. The dragon's moving, and he's like the main animated character. This game is the one where there's a cussing bleeped line, so I imagine there's no way to get into the operator's manual mode and turn that on and off. But in all fairness, Pinball Arcade never actually let you use the arcade mode anyways. It was simply a faulty, buggy, barely worked emulation of the operator's menu. So you're not in any better situation here. But you would be, once again, in a way better situation if you're just using Visual Pinball, because those emulated ROMs files of a pinball table could be hand programmed to any settings you wanted, assuming you can program, which that just opens up the world of possibility. Right, so the next group we have is Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park Pinball Mayhem. Let's see how this plays. I bet all of these tables are fictional tables. It's kind of weird, though, that they would... Yeah, you've got a whole different background here. Film order or selectable. Interesting. Start that at the very beginning. So Jurassic World is the third table. B doesn't do anything. X can change the views somewhat, but I don't think there's a view here. There's not a number 8 view that would put a dot matrix display in the top center, like this was a real pinball table.
You're welcome.
And you can't really turn off the animation. And I just can't see myself ever truly liking these kinds of pinball tables. Like, they just don't feel like real pinball to me. I'm too stuck in the mud. I'm okay with Zen changing the tilt and maybe even tricking the physics, potentially changing the physics to the point where the game actively cheats for you and lets you win. But when you're just playing a virtual game that could never really be a real world pinball table, or will never really be a real world pinball table,
Main menu.
just don't
My collection.
see any appeal to that. I might as well just be playing a Jurassic Park game at that point, because it is just a video game. And if pinball is ever going to have a chance of succeeding in a future generation, it needs to differentiate itself from
Land the ball in the nest.
from video games, not try and emulate video games. Otherwise, pinball just needs to become a gameplay mechanic in video games, and instead of lockpicking, you just have to play pinball sometimes. That honestly would have made some sense in like Fallout 3 or Fallout 4, to play a tiny game of pinball.
Land the ball in the nest.
That thing shoots way strong. Nope. Kind of hate this table design too.
Almost got it.
This is not the Stern Jurassic Park pinball tables, by the way.
What they got in there, King Kong?
The video mode is lit. Oops. Magna save activated.
And they didn't get the license for the Barbasol, so they've got a different kind of shaving cream brand on the side of the table, which that is, I think, pretty much the case for any recreation of Jurassic Park, is that they never
Main menu. My collection.
never bothered to re-license Barbasol
Jurassic Park.
shaving
Pinball
cream,
Mayhem.
which is red and black as a canister.
Okay, folks. Top brass thought sending in unarmed
See, if you're just gonna have
civilians to
a
their park would be the greatest
um,
idea of the century, only to be proven wrong by some nasty
if you're just gonna have virtual tables, you might as well just have it so that you go through one table and then you hit a shot, and then that takes you to a different table completely. Although that would be probably fairly irritating also. This table's not incredibly different from the layout of the newest the newest
fire. Put out those flames now. There's another one.
Clearing the designated area
Stern
from fire.
Jurassic Park table, but it's not really that close.
Nice.
On it. Putting out the fire.
And the idea of fire effects, that suppose you might be able to do fire effects on a pinball table, but you'd also start your table almost certainly on fire, so I don't think anybody would ever dare to do that. You could visualize something that looks like fire. This doesn't feel particularly mayhem-like.
What on earth were you thinking? Get back to the job. Time to prove yourself on the battlefield.
Just 2 animated dinosaurs, and you can't turn off the animated dinosaurs.
Main menu.
So yeah, nothing impressive there. Universal Studio must have been a later thing because I don't recall these tables. Has been about 3 years since I looked at Pinball FX2.
Input the destination time. 1955, part 2. You're gonna shoot the ball, why not do it with some skill? Marty, you must be extremely careful not to run into your
Interesting pop-up cardboard targets. That's at least feels like something that could really be pinball.
Related?
But then there are pieces of the floor that seem to change. And you roll a ball over them. That's weird. It's like a ground spinner or something that really wouldn't ever existed. This is just once again one of those tables though that's so short and stubby. I don't think it has enough here. I don't think it's a good table design, and I just don't like it. I'm just stuck in the mud. And I don't think I'm really wrong there or out of line with any person who really played pinball. So anybody who grew up in the 80s, probably anybody who grew up in the 90s, probably anybody who grew up in the 70s and 60s. I don't think any of those pinball fans are going to look at any of these Zen pinball tables and say, alright, this is the future, this is the way to go. On top of which, now the big thing is the At Legends Gamer mini pinball tables that are not really in scale of old pinball tables, and all of us old fuddy-duddies aren't probably going to appreciate those either. And those are the At Gamer's mini pinball table is so expensive at like $600 for the ability to have a few tables built in and then connect Pinball FX3 to it. It's just not a good financial investment. Plus, it's a giant toy that would take up a lot of space.
Come on, Chief, it ain't that hard.
And even in that case, I believe it's a 24-inch monitor that is in the At Legends mini pinball table. I don't think that these tables particularly play better
That was close.
in that form factor. Well, they almost certainly don't play better because that's also an Android operating system CPU that's weak.
There's one. Hit it.
So yeah,
Come on, Chief,
if you want to play a virtual pinball table that looks like a virtual pinball table, your real solution is to build your own and put a computer in it, or modify the At Legends mini cabinet to play it, work with a PC. And I personally have not been able to logic my way into thinking that's something I would want, because while I do have an At Legends fight stick that has pinball buttons on the side that I can definitely stick in front of my monitor and play pinball that way. I'm not using it right now though.
Main menu, my collection.
Yeah, I'd have to play these games also a lot more to be able to tell you if the throw on the gamepad is problematic like it was in Pinball Arcade. It probably works a little bit better in Pinball FX3. I guess the question here would be, yeah.
Nice one. You know.
The second I pull the trigger at all, a little bit, it goes. Which some flippers did have a double powered flipper where you could go halfway for half power and then the full way for full power. And all flippers have two relay switches on them. One that uses a lot of current to flip fast, and one that uses a little current just to hold the flippers upward. and you can kind of potentially start a fire or burn out your pinball machine just doing this all the time. But yeah, I think the throw issue of having to pull the trigger all the way down to flip is not present on this table. Elliot feels like, how do you get this to fall downward? It's the A button.
Main menu.
Then you have to press. Yeah, I'm not really impressed with any of those. And I said we'd look at Infinity Gauntlet. I don't think there really is a real reason to look at it, but we'll do it anyways. This is one of their earlier generation creations. You can see there's way more animation happening here. So they have toned it down. And you can also see that this is somewhat like that pinball table Big Hurt. Now, ironically, Stern has since made a Avengers themed pinball table that is still colorful and more based on the comic books than the Infinity Gauntlet collection of Marvel movies, but it is way better than this. I think the character on the right there is supposed to be Doctor Strange. And we never have, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, introduced the Fantastic Four collection of characters, so Silver Surfer has not played a role. In a funny way, this is kind of a different... This is a different... different kind of table. This is a crazy table too, in that he just used the time stone on the ball and slowed down the actual game. Yep.
Infinity Gauntlet. A new hero joined us, Captain America.
Notice how much the ball is draining out too. They didn't have the experience to design the right kind of angles you would want. Yeah, and coming back and playing this table, a lot of the criticism I've made about the 2000 era new generation of Stern tables feels a little harsh, because this definitely feels way worse than most of the 2000 era Stern tables. And see, inherently that is the problem with people trying to build a pinball table or a new pinball table company trying to exist, is that there's a lot of unknown unknowns, as it were, to use a phrase, in the sense that I hate that. Notice that they didn't do that and pause the game on Big Fish when I got an award. But yeah, somebody with a lifetime or at least a few decades of experience of working on pinball tables or playing real pinball tables or building pinball tables even, are all going to have a list of angles and shots that they know from other pinball machines that they like, or they have a reason why they don't like shots, angles, ramps, pop-up bumper styles, flipper styles. Like, there's basically a lifetime of experience you need before you can even make your first pinball table, or you're going to end up
You have unlocked the achievement of this table.
So apparently I didn't get an achievement earlier. And it's weird that it's asking me to enter my name, because why would I have to enter my name when you should already know it? But whatever.
Single player results.
When you actually own a table, you definitely get a better experience than the trial. And so they probably should have dumbed down these result screens. No, don't play again.
Single player.
They should have had a tease, as it were, for what you would get if you purchased the table. Well, that's going to be annoying. To get an achievement. Let's go back to Fishtails here and see if there's an achievement around that. Yes, there is. So I just didn't get that achievement. So there seems to be, there's like one achievement per table, 98 to go, as it were.
Marvel's Women of Power, A-Force.
I kind of wish I would know when these were created, as far as because that would be informative.
You chose the wrong woman to mess with.
That cosmic cube is the property of Hydra.
No.
Let's just jump
What
in
the
here.
world just happened? Over there. Take out that searchlight before we're spotted.
I missed. Come on, we should look for another way around.
A-Force is not a good name for a group. But honestly, almost any group of females, there's a potential joke to be made around that. A-Force is just kind of like a generic name. And it's kind of insulting to be called the female Avengers. And if they were called the Fem Force, that might work, but there's probably a joke around that too. You definitely don't want to call them the F Force. I think the biggest thing is you make a joke around it and you would call them the Super Avengers. We're the better Avengers. I don't recognize some of these characters, and the Marvel movies, these are definitely not the depiction of the Marvel
I missed.
movie actresses.
We should look for another way around.
Main menu. My collection.
See, it's almost like they're telling you where you're going as if you were blind, and that would be helpful for the small percentage of people who think they can play pinball while blind. Women of Power. Not a bad name there. You can't make too many jokes around that.
All right, first day of my new summer job rocked. Our new little coffee shop goes well. This goes to the bank.
And here you have Kamala Khan. Well, I think done well, she is probably a decent character.
It was a pretty good heist. Wow, a nice bonus. It's my lucky day.
Let's just jump into the game.
Shoot into this hole or hit that ramp.
I think part of the problem with Kamala Khan is her power set is
Nice
kind of
reflexes.
kind of boring, being stretchy and being able to get bigger. That she's just like Mr. Fantastic, and that's kind of a boring power set also. This feels like it's a slightly improved pinball table on that concept. There are actual shots here to make, and arguably too many shots and too many ramps, and it still is clearly around the idea of having an animated character in the middle.
Well, that ends well.
And I think it could be mildly disturbing to some to see a stretched out hand.
Flipper skill shot. Nice reflexes.
This is
Quite strong enough.
the problem here is Squirrel Girl on the right there is more liked, I think, than Camilla Khan is. So they probably should have emphasized a variety of characters more often. Then you've got an animation of her grabbing a ball, and then that's it for the demo, so I don't know what she was going to do with the ball. So yeah, these two are new, and you can kind of tell because they're not using the red Marvel symbol at the top of it. Instead, they're using the black and white Marvel symbol. And almost certainly these are in chronological order. Otherwise, Venom would be way down here and Blade would be way up there. This is kind of a good indication, though, of some of the characters that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has failed to use so far. Blade, Ghost Rider, Fantastic Four, World War Hulk, Deadpool has gotten some movies, but not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Venom has gotten a movie, but not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't think they did anything with the Green Lantern series, so the Fear itself hasn't been used. People tend to really love at least one run of Moon Knight, and they haven't used that. They haven't had the rights to X-Men. And I guess we could go over the Marvel Cinematic Universe and say, well, they're pretty much done with the original Iron Man and probably the original Thor and the original Avengers and Captain America, and Ant-Man may get another movie or two. Guardians of the Galaxy will probably get one more movie. Some of these definitely were made. Wolverine they didn't use. Spider-Man is half in and half out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Alright, and then here we have The Last Jedi and Ach-2 Island. So, how did this break down as these movies go? Solo was a side story movie.
Star Wars Pinball. Solo.
It is like they are announcing what you're clicking on, but they're not announcing what you're highlighting, so it really wouldn't help people that were blind. So this is
Try to make a cross jump.
this is a movie, side movie of the Star Wars universe.
That wasn't powerful enough.
Punch it. Never mind.
They want you to shoot a ball with a flipper across the screen, and that's something you could never really do on a real pinball table. You would break the pinball table.
Many interesting things. Time is money. I'm off.
This is weird that you're hitting that target in the center and it only goes down for like a second instead of giving you even a few seconds to flip the ball back up to hit it. Like, there's no way you're going to get the ball past that. Not without
Side of all this.
like a multi-ball happening.
Try to make a cross jump. I have something that might be of interest to you. No bargain this time.
So you have to hit Lando Calrissian fairly quickly after knocking on the door. Interesting, the idea of a piece of the table flipping up
Here's another
to
one.
block your way and opening, revealing a sinkhole or scoop.
Main
I don't think
menu.
you could actually
My
build a
collection.
table like that though. So then after Solo, we have Calrissian Chronicles.
Calrissian Chronicles.
And see, this really highlights where
Names Lando
the
Calrissian.
focus of
Welcome to my
Zen
home.
Pinball is to make their own tables in a digital form factor
Allow me
and
to demonstrate my skill. Just
kind of
demonstrating exactly what
make
not
2
to
or
do in
3
situations like this.
tables per license. One being directly after the Solo movie, and one here being based just through backstory around Lando Calrissian. Unless at some point they were thinking that they were going to make a Calrissian Chronicles movie. I don't know how they were going to do that because I think Lando Calrissian, this actor, is very, very old. And that's kind of true for all the actors in the Star Wars series except for the third trilogy new actors, and I think even they don't want to really be in any more movies.
L3, you might want to try and stop those droids from smashing themselves to pieces.
So yeah, I personally would be I will be very surprised with whatever Disney, now owning Star Wars,
Aren't listening.
manages to
Maybe we should just
do
get
with the
going.
Star Wars series.
Come on, Al.
It seems to me
But we need to get moving.
what they're going to try and do is have the love of the cartoon series try and right the ship, and so you're going to have Ahsoka show up and the Bad Batch of clone troopers
Main menu.
show up.
My collection.
So yeah, Clone Wars, they're going to try and be focused around the Clone Wars movie cartoon. Let's see, I'm trying to think of that other movie though. What was that one called? They're also probably trying to do a lot with the Mandalorian series. Rogue One is what I'm thinking about though. There it is. Star Wars Rogue One is like the first one that they seem to have made. And then they'll probably, since Rebels is a sequel to Clone Wars, they'll probably focus on trying to turn that into a movie series too. See, this Han Solo game is different than Solo. Next we have Battle of Mimban.
Soldiers of the Empire, push forward and defeat the rebellious Mimbanese forces.
So I'm gonna have to look at the actual price
Passing our way.
of the tables that I'd have to buy on Steam, because theoretically I could spend $20
Today,
or maybe $40 at most, and at full price get the 4 remaining tables for Pinball Arcade, and that curation of tables is way better than Pinball FX3 curation if you want to play real tables. If you want to play these new tables made by Zen, these Zen tables. Hey everybody, this is Rydo. I'm back. Sorry, doing the intro again. I don't know why. My hard drive filled up, so we were in the middle of the Battle of Mimban, so we'll play that again and just check that out. So this highlights kind of the problem This also is a Disney table. If you looked at the very beginning, it says Disney, and it also says Zen Studios in the dot matrix display. Now, here's an interesting question, certainly, as to why is it still a single monocolor dot matrix display when these are brand new tables, and there is an aftermarket product called Color DMD that would turn even old pinball tables into multicolored dot matrix displays. Like, is the nostalgia for monocolored dot matrix displays really high to amongst pinball players? If it is, kind of doesn't matter on a new table and a Zen table and that theme. I also did some research while I was resetting up to continue to record here. To buy all these tables that we're looking at, it would cost me $137. Well, about $138 actually. And that's a lot. That is a lot. Each bundle of tables is between $5 and $10, and usually $10. And if you were going to buy everything, it would have been $260. So if none of that transfers over, you are potentially on the Pinball FX reboot if no tables transfer over, with maybe the exception of the Zen tables. And what I mean by Zen tables is, I mean not tables made by Zen, I mean the Zen Studios. We 100% own these. Like, these should be free in the Pinball FX reboot. All of these should be free. But each one of these is a bundle of 3 or 2 tables. And they're going for $4 to $10 for those tables. And they're going for about $10 for these bundles. I think this is a bundle. So yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, particularly when you consider that the Legends game particularly has itself, the physical mini pinball table that Legends makes sells for $600. You're halfway towards that price if you pay $260 for pinball tables. You're past the price of buying a Nintendo Switch, an entire Nintendo Switch. You're interesting. And you're very close to the cheaper PlayStations and Xboxes at $260. Now, is that inherently a fair comparison? Not really, but let's just assume and pretend that a video game is $60 still, and you're not usually ending up paying closer to $70 through DLC. One AAA game, let's say 740 would be then 210. So you're talking 3 potential AAA games, 60 hours each, for $280. No, 4 AAA games for $280. So yeah, you could buy all the Zen tables that exist here, or you could buy minimum, I would say, of 240 good hours of other AAA gameplay on regular video games. Are you really going to get 240 hours on these tables? I can pretty much guarantee you the answer is no. I definitely am not going to spend that much time. Even if I go and try and get all the challenges and try to get high scores for the Williams tables, I'm not going to get anywhere close to 60 hours. I played every table honestly maybe for less than 2 hours in Pinball Arcade over the lifetime of owning those tables, and there's a decent chance I will not ever find any extra time to go back and play them.
Something inside me has always been there.
So it once again comes back to just, you probably should just get Visual Pinball. You probably should just get ROMs. You probably should just emulate.
I've dreamt about this place.
I don't know how you really monetize pinball tables that aren't really pinball tables. I don't think pinball maybe can be monetized at all, except for in the quarter aspect. So I hate to suggest that perhaps Pinball FX Reboot should just have microtransactions and in-app purchases for credits, but that might be the better move, to buy a pack for $5 and get $10 worth of quarters, and actually play it that way. Particularly if you're going to use the Unreal Engine to rebuild Pinball FX, which they are.
Let me try again.
Because then the Unreal Engine is somewhat convertible to mobile phones, and in-app purchases in mobile phones would potentially make a lot more sense.
I need to focus.
What we're not seeing in the case of Pinball FX3 is a free table of the month where people can just play for free no matter what as a promotion. And there are tournaments, but they don't seem to be heavily emphasized, and instead they're emphasizing more of smaller tournaments. What we never have seen on either Pinball FX or Pinball Arcade is any kind of sales on tables. So yeah, we should look at the matchup and the tournaments later. By the way, I was having trouble remembering what the third movie in the new trilogy is. It's The Rise of Skywalker. The name makes no sense. The new trilogy makes no sense, really, when you put all three movies together. I actually liked, and I think a lot of people were fairly hyped and happy with The Force Awakens. In retrospect, I think people are probably even happier with The Force Awakens now. But yeah, the Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker kind of ruined that trilogy. If they were wise, Disney would take the story of The Force Unleashed and try and create that for a new trilogy, and get away from the Skywalkers completely and the Emperor completely. But all I've really heard is that they're going to kind of focus around the Clone Wars and Ahsoka, and if they're going to focus on the Clone Wars, they'll almost certainly focus on the Star Wars Rebels, because that's a sequel to it. I imagine The Mandalorian is also potentially going to play a role. I think we've already played Fallout, but we'll just test these out as they go. This is a kind of table that I think also nicely interesting. Random creation character. Since it's an RPG, the idea of having a random character is an interesting idea for a pinball table. I don't know if it really works. I think you probably could take these Bethesda tables and these Bethesda games and potentially make a really good pinball around it, but it would take real expertise that I just don't think Zen has as a table designer. That was weird and herky-jerky. The ball just got sucked out the window.
Excellent. Ready to go.
there is something interesting here. Sorry, I went quiet there. To think about too. These tables that are Bethesda tables are now owned by Microsoft because Microsoft bought the parent company of Bethesda, ZeniMax, which we're hoping Microsoft does well by a lot of the companies that they're buying. So it might be a little weird, and they may not bother to really renegotiate to have the Bethesda tables show up in the Pinball FX reboot. I could see that being the case where Disney doesn't want to really bother to renegotiate for Marvel or Star Wars. They probably would. Or Universal doesn't really want to negotiate for the Universal movies, or I think Universal may own Jurassic Park, otherwise it might be Paramount. So Pinball FX reboot itself might be somewhat limited on tables. It seems like Williams hasn't really bothered to renegotiate to add more tables. And one thing I would say, at least the bundles on the new bundles that Pinball Arcade offered gives more tables for about $10. You get 4, maybe 5, maybe even 6, where you're barely getting 3, it seems like, on Pinball FX3. So yeah, there could be a lot of these licensed tables just not done. I wouldn't be surprised if Fox is not particularly interested in promoting American Dad or Archer, because Archer potentially may not even be on TV at that point. Bob's Burgers, I don't know if Fox is really interested in that. Family Guy, I'm not really sure they're too interested in that. And then the Aliens movies, when they are focused around aliens with an S, Aliens versus Predator and Alien Isolation, that may not be particularly the best selection either. Because if ZeniMax, for instance, really cared,
and what will be your final moments in this world?
There you go, choose skill level. Heart me plenty, Nightmare. Let's go with Nightmare, I guess. If they really cared about Zen Pinball as a cross promotion to Doom, then why is there not a Doom Eternal table? Doom Eternal, as of this recording, came out like 6 months ago.
New weapon
At minimum.
That was unexpected.
This theme does kind of make some sense, though, as the type of game that might translate well to a pinball. Something where it's just mindless shooting of enemies, like over and over again. That is effectively what you're doing with pinball, is you're just mindlessly shooting over and over again, locking different modes, starting different gameplays, going for jackpots, things like that. But like the combo feeling of the Doom reboot really does line up very nicely as a concept to the combo feeling of shooting monsters in Doom and Doom Eternal. Just let the timer run out for that one.
Main menu, my collection.
Yep. And then Skyrim is another RPG. If anything, I would say Fallout and Skyrim make less sense. And Microsoft now owning Bethesda, there is an argument to just focusing on the next Elder Scroll game instead of
You picked a bad time to come home to Skyrim.
instead of cross-promoting with a Elder Scrolls pinball table, whatever the next Elder Scrolls game is called. Although in that instance too, for Bethesda, since they have been so incredibly slow to release the next Elder Scrolls game anyways, and they haven't even gotten anywhere close to their space game, which I think is called Starlink. But I could be wrong about that. There is definitely an argument. Am I supposed to be avoiding the fire? That wouldn't make any sense. You're supposed to hit the fires.
Let's go, friend. Move. Try to avoid his flames.
Interesting. It literally does want you to not hit the flames. What a terrible concept in a pinball table. Don't shoot a shot, or you'll be penalized. Or at least it'll give you negative feedback. That's a terrible design. I wonder if you learn any power words in this table. And I'll probably never know.
Main menu.
Yeah, there is an argument to making another Elder Scrolls game and going back and making like an Oblivion themed pinball table in that case, because any promotion to just let people remember and like the Elder Scrolls games would be slightly helpful. I don't know when I bought this.
Fight, sir, or another bug hunt.
Single player and hot seat.
Like, I cannot
Just
think.
tell me one thing, Brooke.
What almost certainly happened is that these were on sale, and what happens is whenever there's a sale during Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas, the big summer sale too. There's 2 or 3 sales that are really big on Steam. I must have picked up this bundle, and now I'm kind of regretting that I potentially did pick it up, and I probably only got it at like half off, so I still probably spent like $5 on pinball tables that I'm gonna play once. Now, the good news is I haven't heard any claim that Pinball FX3 or even Pinball FX2 is leaving Steam, so almost assuredly you still will be able to just launch Pinball FX3 and play your old tables. You just won't get Unreal Engine upgrades, and they probably will reset the whole leaderboards again just to reestablish perhaps some security. I would like to think that maybe there will be more encrypted transmissions of scores in between the database server and the client software. That way it's much more difficult to send the signal that somebody scored a very high score when they didn't. Also, perhaps some verification software or anti-cheat in it. I'd hate to suggest that Denuvo gets installed or something like that, but Steam has some anti-cheat software too, and you can make a little bit of effort there. Don't spend a lot of effort there. I'd totally prefer them Zen Pinball FX reboot to have one more license than better security on its leaderboards, because at the end of the day there's just always going to be people that feel like they're cheating on the leaderboards. I think we'll just play one ball for each of these tables. I may very well be able to squeeze a couple days in which I just do play pinball for my own entertainment while I'm trying to upload all these videos. That is the problem, certainly, is that I am at the very edge as far as
This place is enormous.
as far as
doing?
hard drive space. Yeah, I feel like we may have covered this table and played it before, but maybe not. Still, this is even if it's a somewhat decent
That was close.
concept of a pinball table, it's really just nowhere visually right, and it doesn't feel like a real table. Yeah. And that's definitely the reason why I went with Pinball Arcade, is because I wanted real world tables, and the Williams license aside, every other Zen table is just a is just a fake table that is too squashed down. It flings the ball all over the place. We never saw the ball leave the ground once, except for in very specific places where it was programmed to leave the ball in Pinball Arcade, which that may be a flaw in the physics, but it also is way better than seeing a ball just get flicked in the air and landing exactly where it's supposed to go. There's like no top glass even on these tables, obviously. Otherwise the ball would be hitting the top glass.
Looks like the hunter is running out of options.
Let's see.
What are those creatures doing?
Well, I've played enough of that.
Single player and hot.
Let's check out the next table.
Alien isolation.
Single player and hot seat.
Yep.
Welcome.
Yeah. I can't really, in my mind, just justify the existence of these kinds of tables. Like, it's kind of like, if it makes you happy, great, but I just don't feel like these, well, even if these were for kids, it doesn't make sense for the Fox licenses or the Aliens licenses. What teenager or pre-teenager knows those shows and likes them? Like, people that are watching Family Guy still are probably in their early 30s.
Shadows, Ripley. Be
Well, not late 30s.
It's not safe here.
So if you were trying to appeal to new players, why aren't there Disney licenses for more kid-friendly fare? Like, why isn't there a Mickey Mouse pinball table? Why isn't there a Donald Duck pinball table? Why isn't there a Lego pinball table? Like, sure, The Force Awakens might be a kids movie, and the Star Wars movies might be kids movies in a lot of people's opinions, and the Marvel movies might be kids movies in people's opinions, but Doom isn't a kids game. Skyrim isn't a kids game. Fallout isn't a kids game. Jurassic Park is kind of old-fashioned. I'm not sure any kids care about Jurassic Park.
Sevastopol's a supply depot in the region.
So
I have to hurry. Great.
I have no idea what I'm even shooting for. It's just like everything is blinking and it's turned off the music. Yeah, I feel like there should be some Winnie the Pooh, Sesame Street type.
Ripley, slow down.
Sleep well.
Like, I think those are the type of licenses you would want if you were trying to appeal to a new generation of gamers. Otherwise, what you're making is this odd argument to old gamers to not like the thing that they liked, and instead like this new thing. Like, you're trying to sell me new Coke here with these Zen pinball tables, and I'm just not willing to buy new Coke. Yeah, let's just go over here. Like, sure, Clone Wars and Rebels is kid-friendly cartoon, and most people would probably think that the original trilogy and the prequel games, which I don't even think the prequel games are options here. Yeah, they didn't even make prequel games. Would be appealing. Was there a Droids cartoon? It must have not gone very long. And sure, these Marvel characters might feel like they're kid-friendly, but they actually really aren't. The Marvel and DC comics are kind of not age-appropriate for anybody below like 14. And no kid's gonna remember Jaws, E.T., or Back to the Future. No kid's gonna really remember Jurassic Park. Oddly, the Williams table are potentially about the most family-friendly tables, and they weren't ever really designed to be that way, but they're just so old that works. And then the Zen Studio tables with their generic themes are, I suppose, mostly family-friendly, I would say, but not to a great extent. There's nothing here for really little kids, and if the tables were targeted towards really little kids as we move into Family Guy,
oh, this is fun, huh?
This one is super animated,
and the adventure
super cartoony.
Joe, that was so close.
This is just a very generic fan layout table with a ton of animation. Way too much animation. And then you've got the Family Guy music playing, and apparently that's not licensed music because the licensed music did not mute it. Maybe this is a special variant just for the pinball table. Half of these characters may not even really show up that much on Family Guy, and a lot of Family Guy most recently has stopped being what Family Guy used to be, for better or worse, because honestly they were just doing the same thing over and over again after a while.
Alright, I knew this was coming. Everybody give me your best shot.
Shoot the bathtub. There's a slowly moving ball bathtub. Up different ramps. So it's trying to get you to shoot different ramps.
Your progress has been, well, who are we kidding? You haven't.
Yep.
Main menu. My collection.
Not really family friendly.
Bob's Burgers.
Nor not really anything that fans would want. What's funny there is there was a real Family Guy pinball table. There was also a South Park table, and arguably I would say the South Park pinball table is probably a great starter pinball table to own, just because there was a lot of them and it's fairly varied as a table, and somewhat easy to maintain and keep moving. But yeah, they made a Family Guy table. It had this mini playfield table, upper playfield pinball that was called Stewie's Pinball. And then they made a family-friendly reskin of it based on Shrek. That would make a lot of sense to potentially license that and bring that in the Shrek version for a family-friendly, and then reskin it and sell it a second time as Family Guy, and there would be different visuals and audio on the dot matrix display, so you are effectively selling something that is significantly different. So selling both tables would make sense. There's quite a few tables that probably could be reskinned. Now, I don't have a lot to say about Bob's Burgers because I don't watch it. Every time I see the last 5 minutes of it, it seems to be kind of annoying and kind of not going anywhere as a story.
Main menu.
which I mean, arguably you could say the same about Family Guy.
Sterling
I also feel like Archer went in a lot of different ways for some of its seasons and literally lost the plot as a series. And the voice actress that plays the mother has recently passed away, so they're gonna have to either recast that voice actress or kill off that character, and there's just been incredibly long delays between seasons because FX or FXX is funding the development of Archer, and it's an animated series. It's kind of the same problem as Rick and Morty, is that as a cartoon comedy adult series, Rick and Morty just doesn't have enough funding to pay enough people to animate fast enough, which is not something you have a problem with Family Guy, but that's about the only show that's really has that issue or that success. Every other show, even Simpsons, seems to take extremely long breaks. They did also make a Rick and Morty pinball table. I don't think the design of it is particularly great, but it tries to do something different. Part of the problem is that the new tables, like Rick and Morty, are made by Stern, and they feel like they are just not finished until maybe 6 months to 2 years later, if ever. What is finished is American Dad. American Dad versus Family Guy. It's basically the exact same name. Why is the ball yellow? That's a weird color choice. American Dad, I think, got canceled 2 or 3 times until it finally was completely canceled. Part of the problem, I think, there is an American family sitcom is not what TV channels want to make, and it's not really what people want to watch. It's America is kind of waking up to the fact that it's a much more diverse and varied culture than TV presented itself as. So having a specific family sitcom happen has become somewhat more difficult to relate to.
You pick some boring case, you bicker, and you solve it. The solution usually being that Roger is the culprit.
Dad! We're coming for you! How do we get in there?
We have your associate. If you want him back alive, we will trade him for the key.
Yeah. I don't feel like American Dad went anywhere interesting. I mean, it's just a rip-off of Alf. Interesting that it's in Spanish.
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Computer-Aided Enrichment Center.
Are you alright?
This is like Portal 2, not Portal 1 themed. There's another mod for Portal 2 that adds kind of a time mechanic. I think it's called Portal Reloaded. That is going to be the closest thing almost certainly anybody ever gets to Portal 3. Valve has painted themselves in a corner and they just cannot make anything with the number 3 in the name until they release something called Half-Life 3, and they can't release something called Half-Life 3
It isn't even a test.
Unless it's at least one of the best games of the year that it comes out of. This is interesting that half the table is blue flippers and half the table is yellow flippers. I recently covered Portal Mel's story, which is a fan mod. And it did a decent job to throw out some new ideas in kind of a Portal universe. And the fan remake of Half-Life 1 Black Mesa has come out. And I need to play that. I think Black Mesa is completely done at this point. See, the problem with this is I hate the Portal concept in general. If the ball is going to disappear and appear somewhere else, then
That is not part of the test.
it feels like that should have been. So here you have that whole underplay field that appears. Am I supposed to be hitting something?
Keep trying. When the testing is over, you will be missed.
Yeah, I feel like if you were gonna make a real pinball table based on Portal, you would have to pull off a lot of shenanigans to make the ball feel like it disappeared through a portal and appeared somewhere else. You can't just program something to make it look like the ball disappeared and then teleport it, since it's not a real table. It's the same old problem though. Stubby tables, bad shots, bad angles, nothing to appeal, nothing that feels like real pinball. Bunch of 3D animations distracting. You can't turn off these 3D animations like you can the Williams tables. You're not in a lounge area. Instead you have these crazy backgrounds that vary from table to table. Even ignoring the massive expense of the tables, both for Pinball Arcade and Pinball FX, there is no comparison. It's just kind of nothing here. Yeah, it's called that. I don't even want to play it anymore. I'm so uninterested in it. So last we have The Walking Dead, which I probably bought this table in a bundle of just trying to buy all The Walking Dead, and so much has happened as far as companies that when I first bought these tables, Telltale Games was a company and it hadn't gone bankrupt, and The Walking Dead series would have been big and popular. Since that time, I've covered every single Telltale game, Walking Dead game there is. Not every single Telltale game. I still have a couple to cover. But I have lost significant interest in actually liking the Walking Dead Telltale game series. There have been several non-Telltale game Walking Dead games that were mostly all bad, and they've remastered and re-released the Walking Dead Telltale games.
Lee, are you all right?
And see, this.
I'm worried. Be ready to shoot.
Interesting.
Got it.
Are we shooting people?
Got it.
This is weird.
Got it.
I could see a LCD screen game like this though. Apparently I failed there. Didn't shoot enough. And that you can see this like upper playfield just full of zombie heads for no good reason. See, this is clearly based on the first season of The Walking Dead. Everybody's just moving away. And so
Good.
And since it's just left and right with the triggers, if you have the crosshair on them. But see, that's not pinball. In no way is that pinball. So that just kind of sucks. We do need to jump back into Pinball FX2 though and see what the final state of Pinball FX2 is compared to Pinball FX3.
Good shot.
Yeah. Theoretically, maybe 10-20 years down the road, I might want to play the remastered version and redo the first season of The Walking Dead. But frankly, the second you are done with the first season of The Walking Dead, which arguably I don't think is even that well written because they had 5 different writers, and I would say maybe 3 or 4 of the 5 different writers were really good. So yeah, I'm definitely not enthusiastic about it. This also kind of highlights a problem, I think, with what Pinball FX Reboot will be, in that there's just not really a good system. Going vertical, then going horizontal, then going vertical again is the only real way you can sort anything. So they are using as much room and intelligence as possible, but this is not the way that a collection feels good by any means. I would like to be able to see a arcade or bigger icons or just more of a focus. Let's see.
Matchup mode lets you play against others online. The more tables you play on, the higher your diversity bonus will be.
Interesting. So we have a league here of this. And I don't think I own any of the tables. So
Spider-Man.
The more difficult the matchup you pick, the higher the reward will be if you are victorious.
okay.
Choose opponent.
So let's pick this person who's very low. And let's just see what happens here. And play a real game. Beat the target score, unlimited ball saves. Okay. That's not asking too much.
Look out! Here comes the Spider-Man.
Let's see. This is a very, very distracting table. I have a timer, but the timer seems like it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which that seems like more than enough time to get that score.
You will never find me again.
This is like the wrong Spider-Man for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not particularly a super interesting Spider-Man, I think, to most people now that they've moved to Miles Morales, which, take note, there was no Spider-Man Miles Morales table. So clearly these negotiations grabbing the ball a lot, and interrupting the flow of gameplay. So I'm assuming we're just racking up the score as high as possible. And this table has the blue and red split flipper colors too. Has way too many ramps though. Like distracting amount of ramps. Earn more score to gain a domination bonus, it says now, so I have 1.
Stay still. This will be quick.
Which, alright, we'll dominate. I'm decent enough at pinball to pretty much wreck a random person until somebody better than me takes me on and then wrecks me. Score boost has been activated.
The goblin's always greener.
See, all you're really doing is aiming for shots.
What hope could you have of capturing me?
There we go. So I got 4.4 million points versus his 439 points, which gives me a base reward of 23 stars, then a 25 domination bonus, and a 0 diversity bonus, which seems to be addition, not multiplication, so I don't know how that really works. Overall, that gave me 45 league points, and so we can exit the matchup. And so now, let's see, it says finish on the top 50% to advance to the next league. So how do we check where we are? We press X to see our score, and I think we're in the 48th percentile here, would be my guess. Well, let's ask this. See, nope, you gotta buy. And at least they do have some advertisements here. That being said, some of these bundles I think I already own, and maybe they've rebundled some things, but I don't think I can buy them through the app better or cheaper. What I'm not seeing here is a Williams bundle per se. They are being sold as packs, and packs are just 3 tables. Yeah, a lot of cost here. A lot of cost. So some of these are straight up just two game bundles. Maybe I did buy these. Maybe I was just crazy and went and bought a bunch. So I can't really compete in matchup, as it were, because I can't really
Tournaments are your chance to compete among friends and players from all around
can't really do anything there.
create your own tournament, active tournaments.
So interesting, you have a whole curation here of some Zen Studios tournaments. Around, like, here we have a 5-minute tournament. Let's try this on El Dorado. We don't have any upgrades, I'm sure, which apparently can be used in tournaments. There was a, like, Eldorado table in Pinball Arcade. I did not like it. It had really long shots towards the center lane and a big wall of standing drop-down targets to hit. 5 minutes, unlimited ball saves, shoot the ball somewhere, try and get some score. I think that's all really that exists around these tournaments. But at least the tournaments exist, whereas in Pinball Arcade, they've been completely abandoned. And there really is no reason or excuse for that, because you could program the game to never touch a server at all. Create fake tournaments with fake goals and cycle through a list of them every month. Or just randomly pick a table, randomly set a high score to that tournament, randomly make some fake scores that make it look like you're playing against the tournament, real people, and then you could shut down your servers completely and it still feel like there's an experience there. Instead of just shutting it down without putting any work into it. Of course, it's always cheaper to just shut things down without putting any more work into it. Yeah. Yeah, in 2021, you'd think the pandemic would have potentially brought people towards the idea of owning pinball or playing pinball indoors if they did own a pinball, but you're not going to have anybody new buy a pinball table in the middle of a pandemic and an economic crisis. And it's way easier for people to have just worked on their Steam backlog and played video games or watched TV and other kinds of cheaper indoor activities. Yeah, if pinball's ever going to succeed again, we're going to have to find a way to bring back arcades, or figure out a way to put arcade/pinball machines in Coca-Cola dispensers, vending machines, which that potentially would work. So yeah, if Coca-Cola bought out Stern and put a arcade or arcade game or pinball machine in front of every single one of their vending machines, then they would be everywhere. How you do that physically is the question. You could easily turn the front of a vending machine into an arcade machine. Just add some buttons to the front and a controller panel. Easily done in a monitor. But pinball is a little bit more difficult to pull off, because I don't know how you convert a pinball table into some kind of vending machine or anything like that. And even if that did work, that would be pretty nasty turn of events, because ideally the hope would be that the new generation would be away from the sugary water drinks and attracting kids back to sugar water drinks with video games is a nasty trick, to say the least. Long time ago, they used to have vending machines that would sell cigarettes too, but they made them illegal so kids couldn't buy cigarettes out of them. So that freed up some room in a lot of restaurants and places for other kinds of electronic big pieces of equipment, whether that's arcade machines or vending machines. Well, if I think about it, if you need just the syrup and a refrigerated line and a water source for a fountain drink dispenser, those fountain drink dispensers aren't really that big compared to a pinball machine. It would totally be doable to be able to put a fountain drink dispenser at the bottom below a pinball cabinet and just have a barrier in which everything below here is a fountain drink dispenser, and we're going to like automatically let you refill your drinks there. That might work. Alright, I got 2 million, which gave me a tournament rank of 757. My next goal would have been 2,055,000. I can play unlimited numbers of times. Okay. See, that was the one I think I just played. Was I supposed to try and get the highest score? Save game is not available in tournament mode. Played by me.
Main menu.
Well, yeah, it doesn't seem like that really puts me anywhere.
This is where you can view your own high scores. Leaderboards.
Interesting. And so this is just a redepiction of
Wild West Rampage.
your leaderboard, and that lets you potentially see overall. And then you've got a single player all time, single play weekly, classic single play all time, arcade setups, classic single play weekly arcade setup, classic single play all time tournament setup, classic play weekly, no monthly though. Interestingly enough.
Main menu. Summary. Profile.
And so I'm at level 8 with 200 out of 800 experience. I have 57 tables out of 99, a wizard score of 2,476, super score of that much, classic wizard score this much, 6 achievements unlocked, 7 1-ball stars earned, 1 5-minute challenge earned, 15 survival challenge. I've upgraded, have been leveled up 42 out of 8,000 times, and I have 108 mastery points, and I've gotten 1 mastery reward. Where's none of my friends have played any other tables at all. We could dig deep into achievements and try and get that if I was crazy, and we could try and level up. What's the highest level reward? Seems like the highest level reward is 50. Once you get to 50, that's it for frames, and that's it for backgrounds. And then apparently there are some other awards if you get high up in the leagues, which at least these leagues seem active. Alright, so then let's exit out, and I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna hope this works. I have to agree to new terms of service. I can tell you immediately there are 15 yeah, that's too loud. certainly. Yeah, it's messed up again. Okay. My whole setup is messed up again. Let's see. We need to adjust several things here. I had not planned for this at all, so need to adjust the resolution. And then it's going to get loud again. Sorry. I have high dots per inch settings enabled. And when you have high dots per inch settings enabled, the game does not want to. Interesting, you can't auto launch it. That way, just clicking on the thing. Usually, almost always, you're able to just double click on a file and have it launch. There we go. And while we're here, we will turn that down. There we go. Notice that Pinball FX2 is labeled as a Microsoft Studios logo, where Pinball FX3 did not mention any of that. So in a lot of ways, they made major progress. So here we have exciting announcement. Pinball FX3 will release on September 26th. Was that 2020? Probably not. I wouldn't be surprised if that was 2019, 2018, or even 2017. You can port your Pinball FX2 tables to Pinball FX3 for free. Pinball FX3 features new multiplayer matchups, tournaments, and a single-player challenge mode. All the tables you've have received graphics, which I don't know why they spelled GFX there, updates including dynamic lighting and real-time shadows. Pinball FX tables have never looked so good. Wishlist Pinball FX3 on Steam now. So you got that notification. So I can tell you immediately this is worse, but I kind of like this more. I have to say I kind of like this layout more. They very possibly made it so you can't buy any more tables in Pinball FX2. See if we were to click on one, it has hot seat and leaderboards and achievements in single player, but it's missing some of these others. The Williams tables are completely missing. Here, there's actually quite a few tables that are missing. What did not convert over, Miss Explosion Man is missing. And that's a weird license anyways, because Explosion Man has been missing from sale on any platform, I think, for a long time. Super League Football is also missing. So there are some tables to keep an eye out. I think Earth Defense got converted over. And Pinball FX1 is completely missing. Yep. See, if you look at this, the number of tables you can buy is considerably smaller. And like South Park is missing. Interesting. Plants vs. Zombies is missing. So potentially it would make a lot of sense to buy the tables that are missing here and try and get them to convert to Pinball FX3, but they wouldn't. At least some of them won't. So there was a level of dishonesty in that, you have to admit. And let's see. as far as achievements, there are 15 achievements I unlocked on Pinball FX2, which just really goes to highlight that I didn't really play any of these tables. And I think the achievements are fairly difficult. As far as Pinball King, whatever that is. You need at least one friend to be a Pinball King. They've dropped that idea. Your friends are not yet ranked to challenge. Pinball Wizard mode is just another scoreboard. So you have these like local high scores, which they've kind of abandoned, having a separate highlight of that where there's 10 default made up names as far as local high scores, and then you have a leaderboard here all time. Let's see, this leaderboard is just a different depiction of the same leaderboard, it looks like, and all tournaments seem to have been eliminated as far as Pinball FX2. And cabinet support here. Free activation code though for cabinet mode, compared to Pinball Arcade wanting like $600 for that. See, if I click this, it doesn't do anything. And if I go over, I can't. Let's see. Yeah, that's not gonna work either. Shift tab. Let's go ahead and do that. It's probably the easiest way to do this. If I go to Pinball FX2's store page, it's totally missing. It doesn't show up. So I don't think there's a way, for instance, if I wanted to buy South Park, if I was going to click this, nope, it just takes me to the default Steam page. There's no way to actually purchase this game. All I could do is try and play a trial.
Game on! Okay.
It's a little too loud. And this is not the South Park pinball table that really exists.
Whoa.
So this is a different one. Arguably not particularly any better.
Very nice, short and sweet.
I think the real world pinball table is better.
Okay.
And I wonder if maybe you could just play it forever, because we're not seeing a timer.
We should each buy a weapon, and then we'll be like ninjas. Oh, dude, was that a combo move? Lou.
So yeah, you don't seem to be able to get a timer by default.
Lou. Yeah. Right here, buddy. Weak.
It's kind of weird to not renew the license
nice, short and sweet.
if you could, because it's not like any of the other games are particularly kid friendly. You might as well get the South Park fans and remasters. I do have to say that I don't feel like this table looks particularly worse than the other tables. Like, they all just look like cartoons. This, if anything, feels more like a regular pinball table.
My turn.
Like a kind of badly made homebrew pinball table, but
Do me next. I want to know if I'm gonna marry somebody cute. Lou.
this feels a lot more like playing pinball than some of the Zen tables do.
Cool. Check it out.
Just with its standard fan layout. Okay, well, And apparently you can just hit B and you can just keep on playing.
Osimo 4000.
Interesting.
Oh, dude, was that a combo move? I'm sorry, but the answer is
Says trial limit reached in the top left. And it gave me just like a few seconds to continue playing, I guess. Alright. One thing I would want to see is like look at the help and options. And let's just see what the graphics settings are. The background didn't change. It's got anti-aliasing turned off, it's got reflections turned off, it's full screen at 1080p. So yeah, Pinball FX3 is better than Pinball FX2. It would be shocking if it wasn't. But yeah, I am not particularly interested in playing Pinball FX3. If anything, I probably should just double down and play the real pinball tables on Pinball Arcade if I want to play pinball. There is a small interest, I will admit to play the Williams tables on Pinball FX3, but I am completely uninterested otherwise. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this spotlight. It was a particularly long episode, I know, of Pinball FX2 and Pinball FX3, and once again I have to say I think Visual Pinball, the open source emulator, is the right way to go at the moment. I think there's a high chance it's the right way to go for even when Pinball FX reboot occurs, depending on how many tables actually do transfer over and how many new real-world pinball tables get emulated in Pinball FX, if that is even a focus. I really haven't heard anything that says it is a focus. So yeah, I would definitely say stay in a holding pattern at the moment. In all fairness though, the open source visual pinball software probably doesn't have tournaments. It probably doesn't have challenges. It probably doesn't have wizard modes or anything like that. It is almost certainly just about emulating the old games as they were, for better or worse. And maybe there are custom modded versions of tables that you could play that might change a little bit, but I doubt you're going to get multiplayer. I doubt you're going to get tournaments. I doubt you're going to get table modifications that have been custom made for people to play. Not that the Pinball FX3 really did a great job. It really seems like all they did is adjust the tilt on a lot of tables. But yeah, I do have to applaud, compared to Pinball Arcade, how much work Pinball FX3 has put into it, and Zen Studios has put into Pinball FX3. And Zen Studios clearly hasn't given up the ghost and just abandoned their software series, and instead has really tried to improve themselves, and they're really trying to improve themselves with the Pinball FX reboot, moving to the Unreal Engine. Very smart. It's going to let them potentially embrace VR, which almost certainly that's a focus or a thought, and it's going to let them embrace next generation of consoles way easier, and it's going to let them embrace portability to multiple platforms a lot easier. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.